Hello, everyone, and welcome to this session that we're sharing with you today. I'm so pleased that you've been able to join us either with the recording or live. And I'm very honoured to be able to bring to you some information today about the BrainSet Environments Formula. I'm Dr. Kathryn Murray from Australia. I am the creator of the BrainSet Environments Formula, and with me are my team, Kavita Tanna and Dr. Sue Allingham. But to start with, I just want you to have a bit of a think about how much you already know about neuroscience, the brain development in young children, and how that relates to the environment in which we learn. Do you know much about that, or do you not? Think about it on a scale from 1 to 5. 1 means you don't know much about it at all, and this is all new information. And 5 means, yeah, you're pretty much all over it. And you do consider the brain development when you are designing your learning environment in your own classrooms or your own environment outside as well, because it covers everything. So have a think about that, and just write that down. And we'll see how you feel at the end of this session, whether you still think you're at the same level or whether you think that maybe your knowledge has been added to at the end of the session. So really, we are going to explain today what we mean about teaching and what the role of the teacher is when they're creating wonderful environments that are often seen as the third teacher. We're going to talk a little bit about BrainSet and what that means. And we're also going to talk about the role that play has when children are learning. So it's a bit of a mixed up thing today. Now, coming back to my beautiful team members, Kavita Tanna has many years of experience as an early childhood consultant across the world. She's worked in many countries, and she works both face-to-face and online. And Dr. Sue Allingham has many years of experience under her belt as well. And she's well known in the UK, and she too works globally. So together, the three of us work across the world to share information about the BrainSet environments and how important the environment is when we're looking at the learning of young children. Really important. So this is us, a close-up of us, and our BrainSet Environments little logo there. So this is our team, and we work together individually and together, depending on the situation. So over to Sue now, Dr. Sue Allingham, and she's going to share a little bit about the role of the teacher and what we even mean by that word teacher.
Thank you, Kathy, and thank you for getting me involved in this project that you devised. So if we're looking at the word teacher, it's a word we use a lot, isn't it? And it's actually not about qualifications or background, because as soon as that child enters your environment, you are teaching them something. And it's a lot sometimes for their brains to take in. So let's look at all the different ways we could talk about the teacher. So we've got educator. Well, yes, the role of the teacher is to educate. Facilitator, yep. Guide, yes. So we've got a balance of direct teaching, if you like, and also then facilitating learning. The next one I think is really important, the environment designer. Kathy's already mentioned about the environment being the third teacher. That's Laura Malaguzzi talking about the 3 different types of teacher. The child's family is the first, the child's peers and friends and other people they meet is the second, but the environment is the third. And I've put some environmental type pictures, if you like, on here to kind of challenge what is being taught through the environment and perhaps the kind of impact on the child's development and their brain and their thinking. Because when we're talking about BrainSet, we're talking about the safe element, being able to be safe emotionally, but also to be able to think. And when the teacher's doing this, they're planning, they're role modeling, they're becoming the key person, that person who holds that child in mind and really gets them, really understands them. And it's a pedagogical process because it's about really deep thinking about how the teaching is going to work for the child. So we have 3 pictures here. We have the top picture, with the child balancing across the loose parts play. Well, that teacher operated as an environment designer then by thinking about how can we make this a safe environment for children to extend their thinking, emotionally secure to do it, and challenge themselves at the same time. Then on the bottom right hand side, we have a picture actually taken at a setting not too far from where I live, where there were two children looking out across the River Thames and watching the clouds. Now that may not look deliberate, if you like, but it's a deliberate, let's say, planning of the teacher, the adults in the environment, to make it a safe environment where children can pause, go to the beautiful windowsill, and just be. That's safe to be emotional and think about things in an environment. It's secure. My adults understand me. My environment enables me to look out of the window and watch the clouds. So if we take a minute to go to that last picture, the one on the bottom left, there's clearly a large amount of environment design gone into that. But if you were that 2, 3, 4-year-old child, 5-year-old child, walking into that room, that environment is giving out lots of messages. And I'm not sure that message is going to be one that makes that child feel secure to investigate the environment, to go to somewhere cozy, to learn something new and develop their thinking. There's a lot happening there. So these are 3 reflective teachers. And just to refer back to Malaguzzi, he spoke about the environment as a teacher. We've got 3 different types of teaching going on here, if you like. But he also spoke about not going with the preconceived idea of a child that you might buy off the internet, but go with the real child who presents to you. So we're talking about a model where we work on the child's development neurologically and physically, and to enable them to feel safe, emotionally secure, but to also be able to think about things and work them through. Thank you, Kathy.
Thanks, Sue. You've given us food for thought there for sure. Now, to add to what Sue has been saying, I just want to share with you a little bit of information about the brain. So when we're talking about, sorry, everybody. When we're talking about the brain set environments formula, we have a general understanding of the levels of the brain. Now, we all know that the brain is a complex organ, and we know that there's lots of regions of the brain that work together, both vertically, horizontally, and there's interrelated parts of the brain that work for different functions. But for simplicity, I just want us to look at the brain in 3 different levels. So let's look at the brain stem. So we know the brain stem is sort of at the base of our skull, and that's the part of the brain that's designed for survival. That's the part of the brain that keeps our heart pumping, it keeps our eyes blinking, it keeps us breathing. It's all of those involuntary things so that this human organism survives. And so it's very important that brain stem is linked to the other parts of the brain, because that is that's the reptilian part of the brain. That's the basic part of the brain that just keeps us alive. Now, the next part is the limbic system, and that's sort of in here behind the ear. And that's a little organ that really manages our emotions. And so having that sense of safety and security makes the brain stem nice and calm. With the emotions, if we can make sure that children feel calm, they feel safe, they feel accepted, they feel loved, they feel valued, they feel wanted, those 2 parts of the brain are going to align beautifully. And when they align and the child has a sense of safety but feels safe as well, then this thinking can occur up here in the neocortex. And that's the T, the part of the brain set, the T part. So we align these 2 bottom parts, and then the brain is clear to think. Now, when children experience trauma, these 2 parts aren't really in alignment, and the brain is flooded with cortisol, and so that creates a foggy brain. So you might have had a situation where you felt a little threatened, and maybe you haven't felt terribly safe, or known that there's, you're not psychologically safe. So you may have experienced brain fog yourself when you go away from the conversation that you might have been having, or potentially conflict situation. And you'll think, oh, why didn't I say that? Why didn't I do something else? Why didn't I give this example? And it's because the cortisol has flooded your brain. And while you could think during the interaction, you didn't think clearly as you possibly could have. It's the same for children. So we need to make sure that our environment reflects the child's development of their brain. So on the right-hand side there, you'll see that I've developed 3 pillars. The survival pillar is the design for learning, and there's some elements there that we would put in the learning environment, both inside and outside. There's the emotions part, which is the feelings for learning, and the thinking part, which is the spaces for learning. And you'll see that there's about 16 elements, and these elements overlap within the learning environment and within the various spaces that we create within the learning environment. That sense of safety is paramount to start with. So we do things like have small defined spaces. So just a few children can participate in that smaller defined space. We make sure that it's cozy. We make sure that it's more home-like rather than institutional-like. We don't want a lot of the bright, loud colours that we see sometimes in different learning environments. So there's a mixture of all of those elements that we won't have time today to go into, that form together to support the learning and the development of the child. And you see there in the Venn diagram, the child is at the centre. The child is always at the centre of our planning, of our design, of our language, of our thinking. And of course, as Malaguzzi also says, the child is at the centre. So the BrainSet Environments formula has taken pieces from all of the well-known pedagogies like Steiner, like Reggio Emilia, Montessori, and others. It's research-based, and we've pulled it all together, and I've developed this pedagogy now that can be embedded in different early childhood classrooms, and it has been across the world. So with this, though, there is the element of play, because we're not discarding play at all. We all know play is the most key part of learning for young children. And Kavita's going to share a little bit more about the importance of play and how much we value it in our BrainSet formula.
Thanks, Kathy, and thank you, Sue, as well, for running us through what we mean by teacher. So yes, as Kathy just explained, with the BrainSet formula, we're really thinking about how we, in that place beyond survival, beyond emotion, but really in that thinking place. But, how does the environment lead us to that place? And so when we're thinking about play and we're thinking about what play is, let's start with the basics, that play is the way we learn, the way that we interact with each other, the way that we interact with the items in the environment, and then the way that we act with the environment as a whole is how we learn. And so play is really the beginning of learning. It really is where we get to express our curiosity, knowing that curiosity is the first step of learning. Playful learning is where we get to be courageous, where we get to really build on that sense of safety and security that we've hopefully established in the environments that we're creating for our children, and really enjoy ourselves, have, experience emotions of joy, experience emotions of frustration, because part of learning is to try new things and find that, oh, that didn't do what I expected it to do, and so that element of surprise and to really engage with what's around us in the learning environment. And playful learning is also seeing it through, being able to make a commitment to really sort of, continuing to be in that place of exploration, in that place of investigation, in that place of discovery, where we're creating opportunities for ourselves to try new things, to go outside and throw leaves all over ourselves and see what that feels like, and see what happens, and to be able to move around a space in a way that feels safe, feels like secure, feels that you're well supported by the way that the adults have created possibilities for us to move around, to take different materials from one area to the next, but also to engage with our friends, you know, to engage with the people that are in the learning environment with us. And so in creating intentional play spaces, which doesn't mean, you know, placing everything in its particular place and expecting the students to do exactly what you think they should be doing. It just means creating the opportunity for there to be different stimulants, really, you know, sort of different textures, different the natural things, wooden things, things that are, you know, more calmly colored, that, you know, can really create a sense of meaningful play, and play that is leading us to learning. So back to you, Kathy.
Thanks, Kavita. And I just wanted to add that, you know, we find the environment in all areas, the whole space where we are engaging with children is the learning environment, whether it be inside or whether it be outside. And we go with this quote that the three of us love, and probably you do too, Maria, and anyone else who's watching the recording. When a flower doesn't bloom, you fix the environment in which it grows, not the flower. And that's something that we hold true to. The BrainSet Environments formula is very much about working with the requirements of development. So we obviously consider the normal developmental domains of the physical, social, emotional, language, and cognitive. That goes without saying. But running alongside that is the development of the brain. And I think that for many years, I mean, I've been in this game now for over 40 years. And I think for many years, people didn't even recognize the needs of the brain. All of the teaching and all of the training was centered around the other 5 developmental domain areas, which are very valid and very much needed. But what about the brain? I think we need to really associate the brain with learning as well, and marry it all up with the space and the environment that we create for children. Think about it yourself when you think about going into a busy, crowded restaurant, and you have to find a table that's sort of shoved over in the corner somewhere, and it's noisy, and you're trying to talk to other people. Think about that environment, as opposed to going to a different restaurant where it's there's calm music playing, the tables are a bit more spaced out, maybe there's an outside area that you can sit at, you can talk easily with the people you're with. Think about those 2 different environments and what that is doing in your brain. So that the second one is calming the safety part of the brain, the survival part. It's making us feel relaxed and calm, and then we can think and we can talk and we can enjoy ourselves, and we notice things through our sensory experiences a lot more than if it's overcrowded, overwhelming, and just busy and loud. So when we look at it in adult terms, I think we recognize how important it is for children and the learning environment that we set up for young children. It's pivotal. And the role of the teacher is to make sure that that happens. We want to give children the best start in life that we can. And that includes that play and playful learning that Kavita spoke about. There's been a number of organisations and early learning centres that we've worked at. And one that comes to mind for me is after I did the first training. So we do about 5 weeks of training. But, you know, we modify that depending on, you know, the needs of the centre. But in this instance, I was doing 5 weeks of training. And after the first one was about the brain and attachment and how important it is that we make relationships and communication. It's about that sort of thing, but a lot about the brain. And so I did that session. The next time the educators came back to me for the second session, one of the educators from a 2-year-old room came rushing in. She was so excited, and she said, "I can't wait to tell you what happened in my room this last week." So I said, "Well, of course." I said, "Well, what? Share with us, you know, what happened?" And she said, "Well, after you explained about the brain and the needs of the brain in our first session, I went back to my room the next day and I changed around a few things. This is in the 2-year-old's room, changed around a few things, and I could not believe just how just those few changes made such a difference in our room. The children were calmer, they were much more engaged, they were more cooperative. She said the whole tone of the room just calmed down. And she said, and the best thing was that we adults could talk to each other about the children and about the different provocations that could go into those spaces and how we could extend their skills and extend their learning. And I thought, wow, and I haven't even talked about how to set up the room yet. This was just because she had added a little bit more knowledge to herself around the needs of the brain. And I thought that was pretty special. Now, another wonderful thing that we've had too is recently I did an interview with Kathy Brodie for Early Years TV in the United Kingdom. And she is a big fan of BrainSet as well, and supports what we do and recommends our pedagogy to everybody she speaks to now. And this is what she had to say. The child-focused ethos is perfect for all types of early years settings. The process is underpinned by neuroscience and Dr. Murray's many years of research and experience, so it's no surprise that it is so successful. I particularly like the use of cozy spaces. BrainSet is a highly recommended, revolutionary and truly empathetic way of shaping the environments in the early years. So I feel very blessed and very humbled to have such a beautiful testimony from Kathy. So Kathy, if you're watching, thank you. I appreciate it. So really, that's us. That's what we wanted to share with you. It was just a little tiny snapshot of what BrainSet is about, but not just BrainSet. It's about the importance of the environment and the needs of the child, and how we need to consider development in all areas, and how that moves into how we plan and how we document the learning and assess children's level of skill development. So it's a much bigger thing than just where you put the furniture in the room. It's much bigger. So to finish, I just want to thank Kavita and Sue for joining me to share this message today. You can contact us on the BrainSet, brainsetformula.com. The website's there at the top. And we work everywhere, and you can these days, can't you? Because it's all virtual. So thanks, Maria, for joining us live, and thanks for those of you who are watching the recording, and we hope this has been useful for you.
Thank you for having me. So insightful and informative. Thank you.
You're very welcome, Maria. I'm glad you could join us.
Yeah, I'm really happy I joined you, and I'm really happy to see Sue also. I have seen her like the last time in July at a book launch. Yeah, but yeah, it's so good seeing you all. And I was thinking, because currently I'm teaching a module on refugee children and, you know, like international perspectives on children. And we were talking about that. We were talking about the impact on children and the importance of the environment. And I was asking students to think about, just for a moment, how important it is for children to have that consistency in their environment, to have that secure and safe base environment. And yeah, very insightful.
Yeah, and Maria, it's also about the effects of trauma with refugee children, you know, and what that does in the brain, and so what that means then for how we set up the environment, because that puts a whole other you know, shape to what we do in the environment, a whole other consideration when we think about the level of cortisol in their brain and what we do. So I hope that's given you some food for thought too.
Exactly. Thank you. Thank you so much. And just before your workshop started, I read again your favorite quote, which, by the way, is my favorite one too. And yeah, I was thinking when I saw it, like, oh my God, 5 minutes ago, I just read that.
Meant to be.
Yes. Thank you.
You're very welcome. And I'm just going to turn the recording off now. Please feel free to stay on, Maria, if you'd like to, but I'm going to turn the recording off. So Kavita and Sue, do you want to say goodbye before I turn that off?
Yeah,
Thank
bye.
you.
Thanks for listening.
Thank you.